Hello and welcome. I'm Cheryl Tan.
And I'm Zach Miller. Welcome to Hampton Roads Business Weekly. Buying local, supporting our neighborhood businesses. Sometimes it's easier said than done.
I recently spoke with the co-founder of Independent We Stand, a national campaign leading the Buy Local charge. We talked about the importance of supporting local businesses and how Hampton Roads stacks up to other cities when it comes to buying local. We are talking with Bill Brunelle, the co-founder of the Buy Local movement, Independent We Stand, which some folks may not realize is a national mission based in Virginia Beach.
It sure is, yeah. It's a cause marketing campaign, and essentially our mission is to inspire small business owners to celebrate their locally owned status and tap into America's ever-growing desire to buy local.
You started the mission in 2010, so right after the Great Recession. Why and how's it been over the last 5 years?
Well, it was actually started again to help bring attention to the locally owned businesses that are in our communities. And a lot of folks don't realize, but when you buy local, more of your money actually recirculates in the local economy. And this was an attempt to educate consumers about that. And yeah, we picked an interesting time to start, but I think it was on the tail end of the recession. I think that the recession taught a lot of small business owners that they need to think pretty hard about how they market themselves, and marketing the fact that you're locally owned can help a lot.
Small businesses are great generators of revenue in an economy. So talk about how important it is to have thriving small businesses in an area, and why it's so important that they grow and why we support them.
Well, there's a growing body of evidence that shows that when you purchase from locally owned retailers or eat at locally owned restaurants, between 2 and 3 times more of your money actually recirculates in the local economy, and that's called the multiplier effect, because that small business owner that you just bought a gift from is also going to hire a local accountant, going to hire a local marketing company, going to take clients to local restaurants, and so it just kind of continues to recirculate in the economy.
You just came back from a tour around the country where you're talking with other small businesses. So how does Hampton Roads stack up, and what did you learn when you talked with other small businesses?
Well, these tours, or actually we call them road trips, we try to get out every few months because nobody wants to be stuck in an office working for small businesses. So we get out there and we interview these small business owners. We did 22 cities in 5 days. We zigzagged from Detroit to Boston. I think we interviewed close to 40 businesses. And the one thing that really stuck out for us is the optimism that's now out there. Now that the bad economy is beginning to improve, people are out spending again. These owners are optimistic again. They're hiring again. They're marketing themselves again, and it's just it's wonderful to see. As far as Hampton Roads comparing to some of those local scenes, if you will, Hampton Roads has got a little bit to go. Hampton Roads is still a relatively young community, especially in Chesapeake and in Virginia Beach, and they don't really have a lot of retail cores or main streets. Obviously, there are a few like Granby Street and some others that are doing very well, but compared to cities like Detroit and then Boston and Philly that have old retail districts and main streets, we've got a ways to go.
How do you create the buzz, or how do you get the love in for the Buy Local movement? What needs to happen?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is educate consumers. And I think every small business owner, any small locally owned business owner has that opportunity, both on, go to the Independent We Stand website. We have all sorts of resources and studies and graphics and other things that you can use to educate consumers. We have point of sale materials, we have social media graphics. The Retail Alliance also has some great tools. You've got to educate consumers. You've got to show them that, in fact, when you purchase at that local store, more of your money is going to recirculate in the local economy. So the number one thing you can do is educate your consumers.
You mentioned earlier optimism that you're seeing in small businesses. What are some of the frustrations? What are some of the things that keep them feeling where they can move forward?
I think one of the key frustrations right now is small business loans. It's gotten very hard since the recession to get a small business loan to expand or to start a business, and I sense that frustration almost in every single business that I talk to. I think the banks got scared too after the recession. I think the one bright spot is that, and even more reason to support them, are the community banks. Those banks that are actually in your community, have been for years. they know the community better than the national banks do. They know the businesses, they know the opportunities and the challenges, and you're starting to see more and more of those community banks actually helping out those small business owners. But I think that's probably the key issue right now, is helping those small businesses grow and find loans to do so.
Again, buy local.
Yep.
Going back to buy local.
Bank local, buy local, eat local. Do it all.
I can tell the trend, right? I can see it. All right, Bill Brunelle, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Let's talk customer service. No matter how amazing your product, without good customer service, your business will struggle. I sat down with Dr. Kathleen Patterson, a professor at Regent University School of Business and Leadership, for a new segment we call Customer Service 101. Kathleen, how do corporate values affect customer service?
Corporate values affect so much of how we serve our customers, because as employees, people who are working in your company, if they are not in line with your values, they're not really caring about what's going on at all. And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. If you hire people who are in line with your corporate values, they believe in what you're doing. They're in the game. They know what's happening, and they actually care about what's happening.
So is a corporate value a tagline? Is it a description? Like how does a company know that what their values are?
Usually it's the leader's responsibility to decide what those values are. And here's the most interesting thing about corporate values. If you are the leader and you've said these are our corporate values, this is who we are, this is our stamp, this is our flavor. If you're bringing people in that don't understand that and you've not communicated that, your employees are going to be pretty lost, and your customers might even be flailing as well.
So do you recommend leaders in companies to go over this quite often with people through
absolutely.
maybe medias and
Yeah, and you need to make sure you not only go over it very often, you need to support what those values are. People need to know exactly what they are, and there needs to be value alignment. And what I mean by value alignment is there needs to be agreement between you as the leader and the follower base. The most interesting thing that can occur, or the most destructive thing that can occur, is if you as a leader tell me what your values are and what they are espoused to be, but then you live a different way. And that creates a lot of confusion in a business setting. If you say these are our values, but you're living this and you're promoting these, we're all confused.
lead by doing it by example?
You have to lead by doing it, absolutely.
What if your values change?
Values change. Promote your values. If they change, that's fabulous, but promote those values out. You may start here. Your business is booming and growing and developing and changing and altering and all these fun things that can happen. Well, change those values, sure, but bring everybody with you.
So through an email, through...
No, that's so static. Don't do it. Live it, promote it. Chick-fil-A earlier this week changed something at their corporate office where men didn't have to wear ties anymore.
Oh.
What they did is they had several layers of employees come out, all overlooking all these balconies. You know what the men did? They took their ties off and threw them.
We should do that.
Yes, let's do that now. But you had ties flying everywhere. That's in a big message about a change in a value. So that was probably due to some cultural generational differences too. But it was a visual message. Hey, we're not wearing ties anymore.
So the values of a company can change as you grow, and likely probably will.
Of course they will. Yeah.
What can an employee expect from a value perspective? So should they look through and say, I do value all these things, so I should therefore be okay with this? Kind of like an employee or an employer is going to look at an employee and do their due diligence on them. What can an employee do due diligence-wise on an employer to figure out values?
And that's so easy to do today with the internet. You can even go on a corporate website and see what someone's values are. They're very clear with what their mission is, what their vision is, where they're headed. And you decide as an employee, is this what I want to sign up for or not?
So let's say there's a company out there that's watching that hasn't put those things out there.
Right.
What would the first thing that you do if you were them, what should they do?
I wouldn't want to work somewhere if I didn't know what that company was about. I just wouldn't even buy it.
What if you're the employer that just never did that? So you should try right now, make sure you have it out there so that
just do it.
does it.
Yeah.
Great.
It is time for our Entrepreneur of the Week. Here we highlight local business owners to learn what advice they have for other entrepreneurs. Today we talk with Alison Dodson Anderson, owner of A.Dodsons, a retail boutique with 3 locations across Hampton roads.
You have to live this, you have to sleep this, you have to eat this, you have to breathe this. And your customer is the most important person when you're in small retailer.
Here with Alison Dodson Anderson, the owner of A.Dodsons and our Entrepreneur of the Week. Congratulations.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
We're inside your Norfolk store
Right.
in Ghent, and boy, is it lovely.
Thank you.
And I know you've got 2 other locations, Suffolk and the oceanfront in Virginia Beach.
Right.
How do you make your stores different yet give the same quality of service to your customers?
Oh wow, well we employ 2 merchandisers on staff full time, so they're always making it and presenting it to each customer in a different atmosphere.
Because they're different clientele in your 3 cities.
They're completely different, and the demographics are different, and then the actual person that's walking through the door might have a different personality than the one that walked into Suffolk, so we really try to tailor it just for them.
I want to hear more about your history though, because you were telling me earlier about your grandfather running a
Right.
general store and how probably you spent much time behind the cash register growing up.
Yeah, we always had a joke in my family that I was pushed up there in like a white wicker carriage and literally sat on the end of the bin while they were pushing down, whether it be nails or butchered meat or whatever. So, to say it's in my blood, it really is. He had a general store called Kirschmeyer's in Chesapeake, where now a McDonald's is, unfortunately. But, and then my mother had a little store called Once Upon a Time Antiques, and it was antiques and gifts. So, yeah, it's injected in my veins.
Somewhere in there. But retail has been tough, especially during the recession. It was probably not a pretty place to hang your hat. But talk about the retail industry in general and how some of the frustrations you've had to deal with.
Well, thanks to the movement like Independent We Stand, it really has kind of, I think it's beginning to just kind of break that ice and change the footprint of retail a little bit. For me, the challenge has been to get out and educate our community on those points. I always joke that when somebody comes in the door and they say, I'd love to do this, I'm like, oh, well, here's how you spell my name. I'd love for you to write me the check. However, you have to live this. You have to sleep this. You have to eat this. You have to breathe this. And your customer is the most important person when you're in small retailer, and we do not take them for granted in any way, shape, or form. I can bring the most beautiful product, but if we do not have amazing customer service, then we can't deliver.
That's an interesting point, because we've heard other retailers and other entrepreneurs say that it's the customer service that you and only you can bring.
Right.
But what have you done with the online world? Because with retail, people can go to their computer and buy just as easily as walk to a store, and sometimes they'd rather do that.
Yeah, and I think it goes hand in hand though. I think what we're seeing is both. Yes, there's that wonderful paid search that you can sell all day long and put product out there. But I think people who actually grow to trust you and understand your brand and have brand loyalty will shop you online as well. And also, sometimes they showroom you. They shop you there first before they come in and actually see the product in the store. So you have to look at it as going hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. I definitely think the bricks and mortar, even though there is the Amazons in the world, the bricks and mortar stores that are going to have an online presence are going to be successful as long as they deliver that good customer service both in the package and in store.
And then you have a strong online presence that
do.
offers both in both locations.
Right, and then there's always somebody there to pick up the phone and walk you through that online purchase. So that's great too.
That's really, really nice.
Yeah.
We mentioned that you have 3 locations, one in Suffolk, one in Norfolk here in Ghent, and then one at the ocean fronts. But when did you make that decision to expand, and why?
Yeah, we actually started in Suffolk 14 years ago, and then Norfolk was our next move 2 years ago, and then Virginia Beach last year. And I have to say, I always knew I wanted to expand from day one, but I knew that we had to have some of the logistics worked out first. Distribution is hard, especially when you have 3 different locations. Everyone thinks it's so simple. You just get out there and ship to all 3. Well, you can't. Your tagging needs to be consistent. Your brand needs to be seen consistent throughout all stores. So we had to really kind of get that down, and then hiring more help. We went from 1 employee to now 32, and I wanted the voice to always be the same throughout all those stores. So training them and getting them up to where they needed to be were some of the challenges that we had.
Any last words of advice for other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, get out here and do it. I mean, now's the time with the economy kind of turning around, and there's so many other retailers out there that are willing to help. Use them as a resource. Use Independent We Stand. Use the local Love a campaign going on from Retail Alliance. There's so many great resources. Get out there and do it. Now's the time.
Alison, Dodson, Anderson, thanks very much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
We are back with more Hampton Roads Business Weekly. Over the next few weeks, we want to focus on the importance of networking.
I met with Dr. Lisa Renz, Executive Director of BNI, an international networking organization. We talked about how to get the most out of networking events. So Lisa, a lot of people are looking to grow their company, and a way that they can do that is through networking. What is networking?
Networking is trying to grow long-term mutually beneficial relationships. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss. A lot of people think networking and they equate it to sales, and it's not at all sales.
So don't think of the end result, think about the relationship first.
Yes.
How could one that is looking to grow relationships in their business or just in life really learn the ins and outs of networking? What were the first 3 things that you would say to do?
First of all, it depends on what they're trying to network for. Some people want to network because they want to do something more charitable, so there's a lot of different organizations they can network for that. Some people want to network because they need to garner new resources or to gain more information or try to advance in their careers, and a lot of trade organizations are great for that. But if a person's trying to network in order to increase sales, one of the things they have to do is go to an organization that's specifically designed for that, so that way people have the same expectation that they do and will help them find what they need in order to grow in business.
So let's go back to, I'm trying to find an organization to do that. How do I prepare for that event once that I know that that's the organization I'm going to go to? What should I do to get ready?
Before you go, like I said, be prepared with who you want to meet, have lots of business cards ready. Realize that not everybody you talk to is necessarily a good fit for you. So you want to find people who you actually want to invest and spend some time with, and ask the right questions. People want you to ask questions to get them talking. They don't want to hear you talk. They want to be able to talk.
How important, you talked about a business card. What should be on a business card? How important is that kind of piece of collateral?
It's very, very important for you when you walk away from the event to have, of course, a professional business card, not one that you just printed off at a print shop. A nice professional business card that has all of the appropriate contact information on it. It's big enough font that anybody can read. Nice to have a business card that you can actually write on the back, so that way when people can actually take notes later about what they talked about with you at the event and keep information on you. So it's very important to have a nice professional image from the minute you meet the person, and to give only business cards to people you really want to follow up with you.
So the business card isn't what's most important, it's that conversation, and then it's that additional piece, kind of that next piece. So I'm at the event. What do I say? How do I present myself? What do I do there?
Yeah, it really depends on your comfort level. We have people who are introverts and some people who are extroverts. Some people can easily start a conversation. So it's learning how to easily start a conversation. If it's hard for you to start conversations, and of course, if you're at a networking event where they're expecting you to be talking about your business, introduce yourself and let people know what your business is. If it's an event where you're very uncomfortable, you can always ask people, is this the first time you've been to this event? It's a very easy way to open a conversation. A person will either say yes or no, and if they say, well, no, that I've been to this event several times, and you go, well, this is my first time, can you give me some pointers? And that lets them give an opportunity to walk you around and introduce you to the right folks.
It's a great icebreaker, which a lot of people who could be introverts could be afraid to make that. So go to the meeting, I meet with some people, it's great, give them the card. What's my follow-up look like? What's that next step look like?
Whatever you agree to, do it. That is the number one thing that gets most people lost in the process and stops everything. You completely waste your time if you don't do what you say you're going to do. So when you're talking to the person, let them know the manner and when you're going to follow up with them, and then do it. And that's the number one complaint that I hear from a lot of people is I told them to call me on Monday and they agreed to it, and then one gentleman told me recently, he told a guy to call him and he texted him. And from that moment on, he decided he didn't want to do business with them because he felt it was very, very unprofessional.
Interesting.
So
really follow the details that you dictate beforehand and make sure that you do it. Last question is there any trend that you see that people do networking wrong?
Oh, yes.
And how could they do it better?
Yeah. I like to think of it as trick-or-treating is the best way to think of it. They go into an event, pretty much, you might as well imagine having your whole costume on where you're completely covered up. You go out there with the bag open up and you run around to everybody, you throw cards out everywhere, you collect as many as you can, and then you try to follow up with these people. But you didn't take the time to invest in anybody for them to even begin to know who you were or anything. It's like you're trick-or-treating. You might as well have had a costume on. You have to take the time and just plan to strategize to meet 3 to 5 people in between about an hour, hour and a half's time, and get to know them very well to where they want to follow up with you. And when you call them, they're like, oh yes, I remember. And you have to allow them to do most of the talking. And that's one of the things. People want to know that they're being heard, not spoken to.
Great.
Yeah.
Naomi Doraguzzi, our social marketing expert, is back with some more great tips. Take a look.
Hi, this is Naomi Doraguzzi with AskNaomi.com, and today I want to talk to you about using public Wi-Fi. It's very easy as busy professionals to check into that coffee shop and when you're at a meeting to connect to the free Wi-Fi so you can do your work, but you may not know that it may also be easy for people to intercept your data. You might want to use what's called a VPN, Virtual Private Network. There are some paid versions, but there are some free apps that you can use. The free apps are going to offer you a limit as far as how much data you can use. Another thing that you can use, it's available on Chrome and Firefox. It's called HTTPS Everywhere. So that again is going to help the websites that you're browsing to make them also more secure. So if you have any questions, you can tweet me at AskNaomi.
That's all for this week's Hampton Roads Business Weekly. You can find the show on Facebook and Twitter at HR Business Weekly or at hrbusinessweekly.com.
For Hampton Roads Business Weekly, I'm Zach Miller.
And I'm Cheryl Tan. We'll see you next week.
Hampton Roads Business Weekly, sponsored by Regent University and produced by ABC 13.